when you get older like me, people saying nice things about you or mean all the more special. You never miss them, so I'm always grateful for kind words from anyone. So Adam has kind of sneaked up, which is very nice. And then I see Amy on the screen with a grand big New York smile this morning. Where are you coming to us from, Amy?
Hi, good morning. Well, good morning from the U.S., upstate New York.
Oh, upstate New York, yeah. Albany, in fact, no?
Yep, just a little bit further north than that, actually. So not so far from Montreal.
Yeah, I know. Oh, right. Oh, wow. That's farther. The only thing I know about Albany are the jokes in The Simpsons. One of the writers is obviously from Albany, so he makes a lot of jokes about The Simpsons. And my brother-in-law went to law school there as well. So, those are two little connections. Anyway, let's not use up the time talking about my family connections as if we're having dinner in Spain. We have some people here who've come to talk about the circular economy, and we don't want to let them down. So let's begin then, Adam. Maybe if you, A for Adam, can you introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks a lot for having me, and thanks for everything. So I'm a co-founder of Net Positive Labs, and Net Positive Labs is an organization that's trying to accelerate sort of global transition to a circular economy. We do this through three key pillars. One is a knowledge hub or a think tank, where we try and conceive ideas of what a circular world could look like and how do we sort of get there from a theoretical perspective, and I'll get into that a bit later. We have a Circular Academy, which is our advisory unit where we work with companies, with governments, universities, even with entrepreneurs, and help advise them on what they can do to become more circular themselves, what different activities they can do, and how to get started quickly, as we mentioned before. Yeah. And then finally, we have a venture studio where we're currently working with quite a few entrepreneurs on building startups that directly sort of address needs to help enable circular transitions. And we do that also with companies and as well with public sector too.
Okay, I'm going to have to ask you, just for the purposes of the audience, just to define the circular economy for those who don't have a bookshelf as extensive as yours.
Well, I can already say that it's a bit complicated because there are so many different definitions.
Okay, that's not what I want to hear. I want to hear like exam, punchy.
Essentially, for us, circular economy, from a macro perspective, is what does a best practice value chain look like? So the principles of circular economy is how can we change our value chains to reduce the amount that we consume, reduce the amount of waste, inefficiencies, problems within the value chain. How can we reuse more? How can we recirculate materials? How can we recirculate idle equipment, vehicles, etc., so that we don't need to produce as much? And then finally, can we regenerate the environments that we actually take the materials from, whether it's urban or natural environments? And we've got another part, which is actually nothing really works if everyone's miserable. So how can we also help people feel happy and empowered within all of this?
Okay, right. I mean, the second thing is quite a deep thought. Okay, I wasn't waiting for that. Like, how can we stop people from being miserable? But we get the central point of you making that less waste, so that you go back to and regeneration and those kind of ideas. Okay, Amy, can you introduce yourself, please?
Hi, good morning, or good morning, everyone.
Yes.
My name's Amy Ryan. I'm co-founder and CEO of ESG Strategies. This is a company that is meant to support anybody that wants to learn more about environmental social governance and how is it going to infuse within your business. I'm sure all of us are wondering, what does ESG mean? Or how can I make this work?
You're taking my question, Amy. That's my question. I was going to ask you to define ESG, but yeah, you go ahead and do it, please.
Sure. Because technically ESG is so many different things, right? You've got a very vibrant debate going on right now in the EU, as well as the US and all over the world, which we're going to see in just a few weeks. What does it mean to all of us? And what I think it is the ecosystem that we all live in. What is ESG? It is how we treat each other. How do we communicate with each other? How do we teach that its value means to be good with the environment as well as the buildings that we reside in? It's basically an ethos.
Okay, but the words E, S, and G have an actual meaning as well. So can you just provide those for the audience?
It's environmental, social, and corporate governance. So the environmental impacts are air, waste, water, how a building impacts the outside environment as well as inside. Social, how are we going to take care of each other and be kind to each other as employers as well as mentors at work and in school. And then governance, how are we going to create laws that are going to be equitable for society that truly help everybody? There's a lot of different conversations about what do words mean, and the words that are going to be inputted into laws are going to be so important as we move forward within this new economy.
Beautiful. Okay, so Adam, give me reasons to be cheerful, please. I read the newspapers, turn on the news, all of these things, and everything is not going in the right direction. So please, in your impeccable British, credible voice, give us some reasons to be cheerful.
Well, I would say the biggest reason to be cheerful is that there's been some strong internal reflection from government, from companies, that something has to change. There's a lot of random numbers being thrown into the air. We're going to be carbon neutral by 2050, but at least the realization that something has to change is a starting point. I feel that there's an enormous amount of momentum coming from universities, from companies. I think, you look at the fashion industry alone, I think they've had countless chief sustainability officers kind of evolving as a new role.
Yeah.
And for me, this is like a decade ago, we started seeing CIOs pop up. The fact that we've got chief sustainability.
There's a joke about the sustainability officers regenerate themselves. They're inherently sustainable. Sorry, I should be using more sustainable jokes, but anyway. They're like, you put 3 sustainability officers in a room and suddenly you have 5 because they start to regenerate. Anyway, I shouldn't be making jokes on video. But in a sense, there are reason to be cheerful that there, but this is sort of what people always promise us, like this will be the year, right? Well, you're saying that this will be the year when people start to take the circular economy seriously, and this will be the year when change starts to accelerate. I mean, that's essentially what you're telling me. So, but why this year?
This is a starting point. This year, because actually the last couple of years, we've seen the investment community really get behind this. And
okay, so the money is driving it, right?
The money, I mean, it's,
yes.
the stick as well. We're also seeing governments looking to, push legislation through.
Okay.
And you look at this enormous plastic movements that has started moving forward, and these alliances is to end sort of packaging waste and plastic waste. It happened simply because one country said, you know what, we're going to ban single-use plastics. Okay. And ideas turned into legislation. Then the European Commission got behind it. And then every single big FMCG or retailer started saying, oh, okay, wow, we have to do something.
Sure. No, I mean, that's always the theory, right? That if you talk to people in the fashion industry and stuff, they say, like, as soon as our customers demonstrate that, they don't want cheap T-shirts anymore, then we are quite happy to make expensive T-shirts, In other words, that they will follow the trends. So Amy, you responded to this notion that what's really changing is that the money is, I guess, essential capitalism forces are suddenly being aligned in the right direction rather than previously they were not aligned in the right direction. Could you just sort of explain what you see happening, please?
Sure. Yeah, and I don't know if I want to completely bucket it in capitalism, but having been in this field for nearly 20 years, and being at Copenhagen right before the generation of the climate accord in Paris, there was a lot of buzz about 10 years ago. I'm sure quite a lot of folks remember.
Yes.
This time does feel different. And I think the reason behind that is because there's been an opportunity to communicate to everyone in some sort of fashion what is really going on. How is it going to truly impact our future generations to the point where we're being able to, just from an influence of not just money, but also people themselves, by communicating what really are the values. And I think that alignment is starting to come more into play, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny, some of my students might be here, I can't fully see the audience, but they'll know from the classroom that I watch very closely the companies they go decide to work at, and I often say that my class is arming you to ask difficult questions in interviews, and not only that, but asking difficult questions in interviews will actually get you the job. being just going along and saying I'm prepared to go along with the consensus. In the right organizations, they are really looking for people to come and drive the change. And that's a sort of, but then you do, of course, meet other people who just sort of like, don't sort of believe in this. They believe it's greenwashing. They believe that nothing is really changing beneath it. Can I ask just among, I mean, I don't know how much contact you have with, with like, I guess people just after university, but do you see people making, or even people sort of leaving like banking jobs and law jobs to work for kind of companies that have sustainability at the heart of their values?
Absolutely. So honestly, the younger generations are really critically important right now. We have to make sure that they fully understand the connectivity between all of the disciplines that are within this economy. That includes understanding governance, understanding engineering and people. And what I've been really driving to do to accelerate this change is I've started with the local university here where I'm at. We're going to be celebrating next Friday. In fact, that's why I'm not in Madrid, the area's first ESG award, where businesses, locals are nominating their peers, and we're going to be awarding them a prize just for being good stewards of the community as well as the people.
Yeah.
We need to lead the way, and it's breaking down walls of miscommunication and cultural whatever. We need to really start understanding that everything is connected.
Yeah, I have to say I'm not mad on the whole awards thing. Like you find things like the best taxation awards, where people give awards to other companies for the best tax avoidance scheme, and like with no irony whatsoever, they trundle on. And thank you very much. It was always my dream as a child to create a fantastic tax avoidance scheme, and I wish to. So I'm very worried about awards, and I'm also worried about But I know what you're saying. That like, but it's a sort of like awards kind of make.
It's on top of a symposium. I don't mean to interrupt you.
Sure.
But that's what it is. This is going through an educational institution.
Yeah.
So it's coming from a lens of all across the community. The award, it's just to honor a local business because everybody's businesses have been so severely impacted by the COVID economy. Mm-hmm. So this is just a way to boost people up and help them feel happy.
Sure. I think, you always look for two signs, right? You look for the bottom-up type signs, and then you look for the large ones. So I guess the large ones are the stuff that Adam is talking about, whereby at like legislative level, people are making, single kind of decisions on things like plastics or those kind of things. But I guess you do also have to see the more local or macro initiatives where you just suddenly don't see any plastic cutlery anymore ever, and or those kind of things, plastic straws, you pick your sort of thing of choice. And those, both are signs that something may be changing. So Adam, you're the Prime Minister of your country. Alexander Boris V Johnson famously wanted to be world king. That was what he told his headmaster at Eton, I believe. If I made you world king, and with the ability to do whatever you want, maybe perhaps a nicer way of asking this is if I gave you 3 wishes, what kind of things would you like to see happen?
Oof, that's a lot of power you give me. First of all, it's every single level, whether it's a consumer, company, or even governments, adopting much stronger collaboration models, actually realizing that together as a team, things can happen better. There's better communication, better transfer of data information, and the more you can enable that and push that, then actually the more productive and sustainable our whole value chain system can actually be.
You're a real systems thinker there. You obviously, I don't know, are you responsible for implementing that into your head? But of course you're right. I mean, I study how to scale companies, and I always say that it isn't so much your individual initiative, it's the way that each thing you do is connected that causes the exponentiality. So but it can be, exponentiality is a difficult thing to understand. So, but you're clearly a big believer in that it's the making the connections between the different parts that together will lead.
I would say, on top of that, a second wish is just getting people, the same companies, governments, to understand that where we are now, at a point of humanity, is where we are now. And every decade, it's going to change. Trends are going to change. Technology is going to change. Behavior is going to be changed. And actually embrace the fact that things are going to change and don't try and resist it. Try and guide it rather than fight it.
Yeah.
We are at a very early stage of our evolution as humanity. Let's try and guide it in the right direction. And
Sure.
Collaboration is one of the ways that you can actually guide it in the right direction.
Amy, people in upstate New York get to have wishes as well. So what would your 3 wishes be?
I really love the idea of greater collaboration and communication, because I have had to help really challenged individuals that needed to do really technical jobs, and their safety, their life safety depended on it. The one problem is if you're not able to fully communicate and convey why this is important for them to understand and the value of them and their safety in their life, then you may always have a chance that they could just eventually not understand it to the depth that you need it to. I think we need to start listening to each other as humans, because that's who we are. We have that similarity. We all beat a heart. And I just think that that really is honestly my wish, is to start doing that. It's going to take a long time, but I feel that the momentum, all these systems thinkers in here, I'm so glad I'm not the only one, and start driving change in a way that includes a holistic approach.
Sure.
That's a big hope of mine. Being a mom, I just want to be able to have my kids be able to have a hopeful future.
Oh yeah, well we're all on board for that. But people often sort of say that, and it goes back to this issue of like what it's very we all try and be good and those kind of things. But is it not a lot to sort of ask people like, what I just want is that we communicate better. That's always what the people who are in sustainability and work in these areas, they always sort of say, oh, okay, I need to communicate better, but give me something more specific that I should be doing. I mean, is it unfair of me to ask you that?
No, absolutely not. I'll put a specific example. I have done a lot of audits throughout manufacturing in the industrial space. So I got to see all kinds of employment from, the CEO to the boiler room. And the way to communicate why something is important needs to be appropriate for who you're speaking with. I think it's really important to consider the shoes that are pointing at you. What is their experience? Because that really will be very impactful in how they receive your message. My message of safety around a boiler for them may be completely different than it is from a value standpoint or to the board or presenting to the CEO. So I think it's just taking that moment and understanding that not everybody understands things the way you do or sees things the way you do. So you just have to be.
I mean, it's actually really interesting. Sorry for kind of jumping on you, but I see this all the time because, it's just sometimes it's just too lofty goal. Unless you can be unless I have the time to give you, Amy, right now to make you feel as if you're the only important person in the world, and then I don't engage with you because I'm afraid that it will and that's if you want people who are in the middle, which is always the dangerous space, to kind of convert them over to your side, you have to try and make it easy for them, and there are two ways you do that. One is that she'll judge me because I will say or do something inappropriate, and that's always the sort of, the issue that I think that holds a lot of people back. I mean, again, it's a huge issue in my class where very often people feel they can't speak about a subject unless, they've read a book on it, kind of thing. And I kind of went, no. It's it's okay to sort of begin the conversation by saying what you think, and then we'll sort of take it from there. So I have to. I'll give you a chance to. I'll come back to you in a second, maybe on that point. But I just want to give Adam his red digits allotted time. So more kind of concrete actions that people might take in terms of the circular economy without having like, I guess I'm totally gone kind of news you can use here, but what sort of specific things? I mean, obviously you work in very detailed legislative, you work with big companies and stuff like that, but what can I do, each day when I get up in the morning?
I think before you consume. So when you're going to the shop and you're going to buy food, check where it's from, check how much packaging it's in, check if it's recyclable packaging, and are you actually recycling it?
Yeah.
Do you need to take a taxi to go into town, or can you take the bus? Can you walk? Can you cycle? Do you need to fly to that meeting in the other city, or can you take a train, or can you attend virtually? I know I'm attending in person from London, so I didn't think before there. But these are kind of small things that everyone every day can do.
Yeah.
And I think it's just a mentality that one has to sort of develop and create.
And tell me, why were you personally interested in this area? I mean, you probably other things you could have done. Probably your parents wish you did other things, but like why? What was interesting to you about getting into sustainability and the circular economy?
I think it's a fascinating area. I think that this whole sustainability topic and discussion has been something that everyone's arguing about. And the way I see it, we're on a very good trajectory when we don't even need to use the word sustainability anymore. When we say, hey, it's a business model, and people just assume it's sustainable and it's going to last a few hundred years. And sustainability shouldn't be a savior type thing. It should just be the rule, not the exception.
Yeah, well, that's the argument for not having a sustainability officer, that like we should all be sustainable rather than having like, the sustainability, that's over there. And we've only 3 minutes left, Amy, but I want to ask you, I mean, do you ever get discouraged? You presented a very positive, optimistic view of the future, but we're going to finish on a positive, but I mean, do you often get discouraged? I mean, you're a human being, so there must be moments when you think, are we losing rather than winning?
Oh, sure. It's a hard battle. This is one of the most difficult careers that you could probably imagine to go into. I started nearly 20 years ago. That took me on a path from in the field to in the regulatory agencies to corporate America to what it is today. It's terrifying.
Yeah.
What's going to be happening is terrifying. The fact that we're in, an exponential moment of change from a scientific standpoint, that's also terrifying. But at the same time, we have to realize that we have a chance. We got to use the best ingenuity we've got and not forget that, really.
Mm-hmm. No, that's cool. And Adam, just in terms of career advice to people, like, I mean, you have your own firm and stuff, but perhaps, people who are starting in this area, there's probably, not ready to go into a firm like yours. So what, someone is interested in a sustainability career path or an ESG, what kind of advice would you have for them?
I would say treat it like a normal career, except be excited that you're in an area where there's an enormous amount of innovation that's happening. I think most companies that have started going into sustainability have realized that they're also achieving a lot of innovation goals as well. Yeah. That it's going to be an incredibly strong skill set of the future. It's encouraging systems thinking, encouraging collaboration, encouraging adopting new business models and new technologies. I think it's just a really great area to be in and build a really strong set of skills across the board with it.
Okay, and last question then is for Amy. Where can we get more Amy Ryan? Are you on YouTube? Do you have a website? Do you have a Twitter? Do you publish? What kind of, if people want to find out more about you and what you do, where can they go?
Oh, thank you. I do have a website, esgstrategies.org. I have a Twitter, but I'm working on it. So I'm a scientist by trade. So I'm starting to get out of my shell a little bit, but I really look forward to being more part of this. So got that Twitter account going. I have my LinkedIn. We're getting there.
I'm a Twitter addict, and it's very difficult to justify it in some ways, but you do learn an awful lot from it as well. Just have to not go negative is the rule. Just don't go negative, and you'll be fine. Finally, just Adam, to be fair to you, what's your website? Do you have a Twitter? Where can we get more, Adam?
No Twitter, but we do have a website, netpositivelabs.com. We also have a LinkedIn page as well, and if anyone wants to find out what we're doing, we do regular sort of publications and newsletters on LinkedIn. I think that's the best place to find out and follow. And you can feel free to reach out if you want to talk about circularity.
Fantastic. Okay, so it just remains for me, first of all, to thank Adam. Thank you very much for your contribution today. It's been really interesting to talk to you. And thank you also, Amy, for speaking to us this morning and connecting on video. I know speaking on video is never easy. You know, you'd always rather be in the room. But as Adam mentioned, it is sustainable. So in that sense, we have to never see it as being a lesser experience and always regard people on video. So it just remains then for me to thank the audience most sincerely for coming along and to listen to us. My name is Joe Haslam, and I hope you have a great rest of day. Thank you very much. Thank you.